You're in a relationship, committed to someone. You're not convinced that they're a terrible person. This isn't like an easy fix. They were great until this other person showed up. Okay, so you're in that situation where you're interested in someone else whilst also being pretty sure that you're got an okay partner and you're in this dilemma. You're very sure that your partner is a bad partner, break up with them. This isn't a dilemma at all. You've only got one life. You shouldn't spend it in a shit relationship. So this isn't a dilemma if that's the case. What I'm talking about is when you're not sure. They're both good options. Should you shift? Here's my top advice for this. Assess each person one at a time, starting with your current partner. This is not a competition between two people. Do I stick with current partner or choose the other one? No, cut that out. The first question is, do I stick with current partner? And that's the only question you're answering. This other person being attractive is not a factor in that decision. There will always be other attractive people. There will always be grass that's greener. That doesn't actually tell you how good your current relationship is. Because what I'd suggest, the easiest way to make this decision as healthy and as accurately as possible is that you're going to either stay with your partner or you're going to break up with them, be single for a while, and then pursue other people. You're not switching from one person to another. Because if nothing else, you want to work on your avoidant attachment. You want to get to a secure attachment style, which means you don't flick from one flower to a flower just because you're seeking pollen, right? That you see it through with the flower until it's no longer a good flower. And then you take a break, have some time to yourself, learn, reflect, become a better person, and then make sure you get into the next relationship a wiser person, right? So this is not a choice between two people. It's actually a choice about one person, your current partner. You've got to ask, what does it mean to have a good partner? What kind of relationship is worth sticking with through the hard times? What is it you're really looking for? When you think of sort of growing old with someone, what would make that worthwhile? What would make that better than being single or better than being promiscuous? Because those are the other options. First things I'm always thinking about is shared values. Are we going to be able to go the distance with our values, or do we have deal breakers? If I believe in honesty and she believes in deception, that's a deal breaker. If I want to have kids and she never does, that's a deal breaker. If I want to live on one side of the world and she insists on living on the other side of the world, deal breaker. If I treat people well and she's a bitch to people, deal breaker. So first I've got to understand the basic core values beyond attraction, beyond shared common interests, the actual values and principles that we live by, the things we think are important, that we've shown with our behavior we're going to continue thinking they're important long term. Are those things aligned, or is there friction there that cannot be resolved? Now, if there's friction that cannot be resolved in the relationship, if there's friction that can be resolved, resolve it without compromising who you are. And if there's no friction, then you've got to ask, well, why do I feel like leaving? If I've got somewhere where I've got good value alignment, at the very least, we now know that a good long-term friendship could be maintained. And when it comes to a relationship, we're asking about the romantic element as well. But we know a relationship in terms of platonic could be maintained if we have strong value alignment. Like I can hang out with anyone long term if we got strong value alignment. We both believe in, at a core, at the same kind of moral code, then we'll at least get along well for a long period of time. But what if there's no attraction left, or there's a brief dip in attraction, you're not having sex for a while, or whatever, like this kind of thing that often leads people to start looking elsewhere. Well, first off, have you talked about it? I can't believe how many people start thinking about being with someone else and they haven't even tried to address the problem directly with their partner. It's ridiculous. You want to make sure that by the time you leave your partner, you have tapped out every available option. You haven't just gone like, well, they should just know. And going, fuck it, I'm bailing. Like, that's pathetic. That's childish. Work on it. They don't know. Address it with them. Have you gone to get some relationship counseling? Have you at least sat down at the table and said, look, this is bothering me. We need to do something about it. Have you tested to see if behavior will change when it's confronted? Because you shouldn't even be looking at other people until that's done. If you're looking at other people before that's done, you're the problem, not them. Like I said, the main question you ask yourself, how did I get to this position where I'm even considering someone else? Well, how did you get to the point where you haven't even tackled issues in your relationship and you're looking to jump ship? You want to make sure that there's going to be no regrets. That when you leave this person, you can always say, hey, we tried to make it work and it did not. You don't want to be leaving them and getting that yearning that so many people do when they betray their partners and go to someone else. Of, oh my God, I should have stayed. You want to make sure that as soon as that comes up, you're like, no, 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 no. We tried to make that work. That wouldn't work now. It wouldn't work then. It couldn't work in the future. We maxed it out. So have you tried solutions? Have you tried all the solutions? Or at least a reasonable degree of effort where you're like, there's no further effort needs to be required. This is not working out. We're chalk and cheese. By the way, if you're enjoying this video and you want more stuff like this, you want content on nice guy recovery, healthy relationships, confidence building, check out the link below to join the Brojo community, or you can get in touch with me personally, dan@brojo.org, to talk about any other kind of support, including one-to-one coaching. And have you already committed 100%? Not promised, but committed. Are you behaving like a partner who's all in? So many guys, like one of the main complaints I get from both sides, from men and women, is that the sex has died off. And, the guys stop initiating sex, or the girls reject sex quite often. And on both sides, I'm looking at it going, yeah, but what did you do about it? A woman will complain that her man's not initiating sex, and she doesn't even talk to him about it, right? She doesn't even find out why it's not happening anymore. Could it be something she's doing that puts him off? Could it be that he's been allowed to get complacent and lazy, that she did all the leading and she needs to make sure he does it more, whatever? And then the guy's like, oh, my wife rejects me. It's like, did you do anything to turn her on? Did you make her horny? Because here's the funny thing, like, for any guy who complains about his wife rejecting him, I promise you she won't reject you if she's horny. So the question comes, why isn't she horny? Before you start going like, oh man, like this isn't working out, go, well, have I gone all in on it? Have I pulled my weight? Am I sitting around like some bitter person waiting for them to make their move? Or am I going to make my move and at least give it a go and know I've tried my best, as well as confronting them about not making their move? If you go like, well, I tried 3 months ago and he said no, so I'm not doing it again. Well, then you're the problem, not him. Okay? He's got problems too, but you're the problem. And you've got to ask yourself, is this an avoidance issue or a relationship issue? Is this a problem with me or a problem with us? You'll know it's a problem with you if it keeps happening with every partner you have. And it happens in your friendships. There's so many people who are like, oh man, everyone's awful. It's like everyone's awful or you're awful. If you're in conflict all the time, you're the problem. Either you're choosing people who are high conflict or you're provoking conflict in some way. If your relationships are always struggling in the same way, that's a you thing, not a relationship thing. Now, if previous relationships have been great and this one's going badly, this might be more on the other side of the fence, or might be the dynamic between the two of you. But you've really got to figure it out. Is this me self-sabotaging, backing out, or being even too anxious and causing problems that suffocate them, make them want to go away? Is this really just me and I do this to everyone? Or is it the dynamic between the two of us? Is this a 50-50 thing that needs to be worked on? Like I said, if you work on your shit first, then you'll be able to see whether or not they've got a problem. Let's say, like I said before, if your wife keeps saying no to sex, do everything you can to make her horny, and then see if she keeps saying no. So make sure you've done your 50% before you start thinking that there's a problem in the relationship. So once you've figured out all of this, you've tried everything to make it work. You made a commitment, you try to make that commitment pull through. You've checked everything. Is this a brief issue? Are we just going through a rough patch? Am I fully committed and all in? Am I behaving like someone who's a good partner myself? Am I worth staying with? And therefore, they could reciprocate that and so on. And that doesn't work, then end the relationship. We're still not even thinking about other people yet. You just know this one doesn't work. So get out. You've got one life. It's an incredibly short one. It gets shorter as you get older. Trust me on that. You don't want to waste time with people. Let's say, I'm kind of making this up, but let's say it takes about 7 relationships to figure all your shit out. You want to get through those 7 as quickly as possible to find the magic number 8 or whatever the fuck it is, right? Very few people get it right in their first go. In fact, I don't think anyone does. And if they did, they're kind of deluding themselves, but I could be wrong about that. But I'd say it takes a few goes to figure out. It's like your first job's not going to be your ideal career, right? You don't even know who you are or what you like yet. It's actually a series of relationships that will help you figure that out. So you got to kind of work through your shit, and you want to do that as quickly as possible. You don't want to waste time. You don't like how many times I've worked with a client where they're in a relationship and they'll be like, "Yeah, we've been together 6 years, and the first two were good." I'm like, 4 bad years? How are you still there? That's just at this point, this is masochism. You're just hurting yourself. You must enjoy torture if you're still there after that long. If the bad outweighs the good, you're in a bad relationship. Even if there are good times, it doesn't mean it's a good relationship. Even if you have moments of pleasure and fun, it doesn't mean you're in a healthy long-term relationship. Those two are not the same thing. Even people in highly abusive relationships have some good memories, and they're genuine good memories. Even people who are horrible parents, they had a few good camping trips with those parents. That doesn't mean they're good parents, right? So once you've figured out that this needs to end, you end it, stay single for a bit. Don't just leapfrog onto the next fucking person. Because if that's your pattern, especially, that means you never take time to stop and think, what the fuck's the problem? Why do I keep having the repetitive issues? There's a thing related to trauma therapy called the repetition compulsion. We just repeat ourselves over and over again, trying to solve an unsolvable problem. I see so many people doing this. I'm at the age now, I'm in my 40s. I'm starting to see, particularly the women who are now again single in their 40s after yet another failed relationship, and they just keep repeating like bad choices with relationships. It's coming to a head now because there's also women who want to have children, and that time's really running out. And I can just see, I'm just like, yeah, you haven't learned anything. And you just keep jumping from one guy to another and not learning anything. So you're just stuck in stalemate. Like you're just going to keep doing this. It's not going to get better because learning comes from reflection. You have to look at yourself and go, what happened? What can I take away from this? And people jump too quickly to the next person, not giving themselves time to reflect. Like, if you're in a relationship that just ended, well, something went wrong. Now, maybe it was good at the start and then deteriorated. Maybe at the start you were deluded into who you thought they were, and it ended up sort of manifesting later on. But if it was all good choices, then you'd still be in the relationship and you'd be happy there. So you got to take responsibility. Like it's not like there's something wrong with you. There's no shame in a relationship failing, but it did fail. It was not successful. So what are you going to take away from that? Every failed relationship I've had massive learnings from me, and it's the main reason I've been with my wife for 10 years now, through a lot of hard times. It's all those lessons. When I reflected, now I was kind of forced to be single, call it good luck or bad luck. I really sucked with women, so I was forced to take a lot of time to reflect between every brief interlude with a woman. And so there's a lot of time to kind of realize what was wrong. I didn't have the luxury of jumping to another person, what I call serial monogamy. And I've seen other people and I was jealous of them, like, man, as soon as one thing ends, another jumps up, or they usually have like a crossover where they start cheating and they end up with a new person. They're never single, never alone, lucky bastards. And now I realize, fuck, as we got older, like I was actually the lucky one to have time to learn stuff. They never picked up and they're just in the same shit that they were in at their 20s. I don't want that for you. Set goals to fix the issues that caused the breakdowns in your previous relationships. Sort that shit out, then pursue other people. Make sure that they're different, healthier, more confident people than the previous ones. Don't make the same mistakes. If your current partner is abusive, just leave. Don't try to fix it. There's 8 billion people on the planet. You don't need to settle for someone who's not even going to give you a basic level of respect. I would only put effort into a relationship where there's at least a basic level of respect. Like they're at least trying. They hold themselves back. They could be abusive, but they don't. But occasionally they might be less than awesome, right? That's fine. But if someone's nasty to you, manipulates you, gaslights you, calls you names, hits you, I wouldn't even try to fix that. Fuck that. Even if you got kids, just bail. Really. That's my opinion more than fact. But for me, it's just such low self-worth to try and make something like that work. You're telling yourself you don't deserve better. So like I said, I know I keep emphasizing this. The key question is, how did I get myself into this situation? Where was my loyalty? How do I allow something with someone else to develop without dealing with the issues in my relationship first? Is there a pattern of me doing this? If I'm with someone that I don't really like anymore, how did I allow that to happen? Were there early warning signs? How long have I known about this and stayed in the relationship? These are personal problems. They're not problems with somebody else, right? These are issues you have, attachment issues. One thing that can really help is learning to become a good ender. right? To be able to end something as soon as the red flags come up. And I don't mean as soon as you're slightly attracted to someone else or a little bit bored, but as soon as you see incompatibility, right? If you're early on, someone's talking about how much they want kids and you know you don't want it, end it right there and then in that conversation. Don't drag it out hoping somebody will change their mind. You should be ending a relationship before you find somebody else interesting. You should be ending it because it's bad. On the other hand, if you're an avoidant person, you might be ending things arbitrarily on superficial means, in which case learning to stick in with something is going to be the challenge. Where you say, look, as long as they're not treating me badly, and I still at least find them a bit attractive, I'm going to stay in. And that might be the development you need to work on. Either way, I'm not looking for other people. And that I've had to go through both of those developments. In my earlier years when I was desperate for women, I was bad at ending things. I was always the one who was dumped, because I just wanted to drag it out as long as possible because I was scared I was going to be alone for my whole life. Later on, when I got over that fear, I became bad at committing to things. I was just like, there's always grass is always greener. Like, you have a slight fault in your personality, so dismissed. And I realized like that's going to leave me alone as well. And I had to find that third option. It's not even middle ground, it's just a completely different option of like, if something's good, learn to make it work, keep it going without having to compromise yourself. And I had to overcome my fears of commitment and intimacy, my fear of being rejected or having my heart broken, and see it through with faith in the idea that that's better for me than being promiscuous or being single. And I'm not saying that's for everyone, but for me personally, I've tried being single for a long time. I've tried being promiscuous. I've done both. None of them are as sort of life rewarding in quality as being in a healthy long-term relationship. I know that one's best for me out of all the options available, but I have to work through my commitment issues. If there's a rough patch, I have to build a bridge over that rough patch and not just live for the high moments all the time. You also got to treat yourself like you are at risk. Prevent temptations. Don't allow the slips. Are you sneakily looking at porn or Instagram pictures? Are you flirting a bit too much at work? Spending too much time after work with your colleagues? Is that person at your hobby, you're excited to see them and trying to find an excuse to be near them? Are you allowing those boundaries to slip? When you look at your behavior, like, if my partner caught me doing this, would I be okay with it? As soon as the answer is no, you're the one with the problem. You need to get on top of this. You're starting to create that self-sabotage pattern. It's like if you're an addict. The best way to manage that addiction is go nowhere near your drugs, right? Don't even allow any proximity whatsoever. If you're an alcoholic, don't go anywhere near alcohol ever. It's the most safest way to manage your health. And if you're someone who has a problem with attachment and avoidance and cheating and so on, don't go near people you're attracted to. I don't mean like isolate yourself, but like if someone cute starts flirting with you, end the conversation or walk away. Value something else better than a bit of instant approval and gratification. Most of all, honesty. Like cheating, betrayal, that all starts with this resentment of secret problems. You got an issue with your partner, you don't speak about it directly, you don't try to solve it. You might do a bit of passive aggressive hinting here and there, but mostly you just hold it in and tell yourself a story about how they're the bad guy. That's one of the key elements to the psychology of cheating is prior to the cheating, the cheater has sold themselves a story as to how their partner is disappointing, letting them down, not being a good partner to remove the guilt of cheating. They don't even notice themselves doing this build up a lot of the time. But if everything's out on the table all the time, then most of your relationship issues will either be sorted or it will be shown that they can't be sorted. Either way, in which case you would end the relationship. So if you're just honest about all your resentments and every problem you have all the time with your relationship, and make sure that's always discussed on both sides, they're encouraged to do it too. As well as the positive. You don't just bitch all the time, right? You emphasize the stuff you like, you validate what you approve of. That'll either create conversations that deal with the issues or allow acceptance to happen, or it'll bring up the truth that, hey, you guys aren't right for each other. And if you've got a problem with commitment, here's my number one practical tip to finish with. One more time. Let's say you're in the dating phase with somebody and you're starting to be attracted to others, you're not sure if you should keep seeing this person. Just ask yourself, do I like them enough? Is the relationship good enough for me to spend one more day with them? If the answer is yes, then do that before you consider anyone else. And just keep doing that until the answer is no. You break it down to one day at a time. It's less overwhelming. The panic about commitment and intimacy and one vagina for the rest of my life, that panic goes away because you're like, look, it's just one more time. I'm not saying anything beyond that. And if someone's good for you, then one more time will never be a problem. If someone's bad for you, you'll be like, oh, I can't be fuck seeing them this week. And that's when you know. But don't do it like, is it this person versus that person? Because it's an unfair comparison. Hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for listening. See you all next time. If you like what you're hearing, you're enjoying the podcast, please check out the link below to join Brojo or get in touch with me personally if you want to talk about one-to-one coaching, dan@brojo.org.